Evening. Welcome to the Jacksonville Water and Sewer Advisory Committee meeting. This is June 10th, 2021, and I'm calling the meeting to order. First order of business is the adoption of the agenda. If everybody's had a chance to read it, do we have a motion to adopt or amend?
I make a motion that we adopt the agenda for this evening's meeting.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. The second order of business is the minutes from last month's meeting, and do we have any corrections or comments on it? No? Do we have a motion to adopt the minutes?
I make a motion to adopt the minutes for the May 13th meeting.
And we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. All right, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Wally very briefly right now.
All right. The first item on your agenda is the water plant annual inspection. We recently had the state come in and do an inspection of our water system. They looked at the plant, the wells, and the discharge line that goes out to the New River. Of course, the discharge line just carries the concentrate that is left over from the process out to the New River, and we discharge it in the New River. So as part of that, we thought it would be good to bring you that inspection, kind of go over with you what the inspection looked at, and then what the findings were, and then how we responded. So tonight, you're going to hear from John Hemsworth. John is our plant operator 3 at our water treatment plant. He has his A-well, so he has his highest well certification. He's got his NPDES permit, which is what's required for the discharge his certification, which is what's required for the discharge into the New River. And he's our backup ORC, which is our backup operator in charge. And he answers to Joe. So that's why Joe's sitting in the audience tonight. John's been with the city for 6 years now, started as an operator 1 and has moved up with us. So we're happy to have him. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to John.
So as Wally said, we're going to go over the annual inspection. Most of the inspection is going to be covered on the drinking water side, and a very brief one on the NPDES discharge line. So the annual inspection is carried out by the Department of Environmental Quality, and usually we have one inspector we usually deal with. And we have our drinking water and then our concentrate line. And usually that inspection, we can usually cover it in 2 to 3 days, because our field it's pretty tight together between our Black Creek wells out in the county and then all of our inner city wells. But we always start off with the nano plant. We give them a very detailed tour of our operations and our safety precautions that we do. And some of the questions they ask is our storage capacity for that one site, backup generator power. They usually want the specs on that, and security measures for our ground storage tank ladder, our chemical safety procedures, and everything safety related dealing with the chemicals. Next, we take them out to the well field. And with the well field treatment plants, we have Gum Branch Central, well 6, and well 7. And with those, they really just want to look at the chlorine rooms and the safety measures just in result for possible chemical leaks for chlorine gas. The pump capacities for every pump in the well house, that will be the well 6 and 7's well pump as far as those two go. And in Gum Branch Central, since it's not a well, it's just a clear well, we want the specs on the 3 high service pumps we have there. And then the storage capacity at Gum Branch Central, which is 500,000 gallons. The safety regarding the pits, because we do have a hatch that can have access for our inspectors to look inside the clear well, make sure that that's locked and the fences are locked so no one can get in. and then the backup power for those stations. And they also look at environmental concerns such as standing water in the area, the blow-offs for some of them, make sure that there's screens on them. And then we take them to some of the other well houses. And fortunately for us, we have a very proactive operating staff and maintenance crew that when they walk into the well house, as you can see here, it looks pretty clean. And since we visit every single well house multiple times a week, all the operators look for any type of flaws that a state inspector might notice. And if they do find flaws, the maintenance crew jumps right on it. So they usually walk in, look through everything, get the pump flow capacities, the backup generators if there are any, and ask if we have any ongoing issues with the well. And then they do want to know which aquifer it pulls from, whether the Castlehane or Black Creek, and then the environmental standing water in the area. Our booster station, all they really want to know about that is the security, the backup power, and the pump capacities. And our water towers, they just want to know backup power capabilities. Are they controlled? Because the commons tank, we actually don't have a valve to automatically shut. We only view it through our SCADA, the water level. And the other 5 water towers, we can actually close that tank or open it back up. But all of them are viewed through SCADA, so we just kind of go over that with them, make sure all the fences are not faulted in any way, and keep the greenery off the fences. And the biggest thing is some of those have cell tower mounted on top, and sometimes when those contractors go up there, there's a cover plate that blocks that ladder, and that's one of the only things that really we got talked to about is so many different people go up there, then the lock changes, so they have to cut the lock, and that's just one ongoing issue we deal with. And the findings was, as I said, the water tower ladders. And on this one, it's a little hard to see, but some of the wells have little drain valves. They all have to have little screens blocking it so nothing can crawl in. Over time, sometimes the water will just kind of tear a hole into that. And I think there was 2 that had to be replaced. And then a lock on the Gum Branch Central clear well hatch. That hatch has a square key lock, but there's also a secondary key lock. And our contractor went to that site, I believe, recently, and when we took it off so he can kind of look inside, it was just not put back on for some reason. But everything was completed by the following day. Because once we got our sheet of things that we needed to change, our maintenance crew went out the next day and took care of it all. And our concentrate line, as Wally said, discharges to the New River, and we average about 1 million gallons a day. And our permits allows us to go from pH of 6.5 to 8.5, and we average 7.7 plus or minus 0.2. We aerate it with a compressor at the plant for the dissolved oxygen levels. We sample it multiple times a day as operators. The lab will sample it weekly, and I believe water quality goes out. I think it's water quality. They'll go up and sample the upstream and downstream on the pontoon boat at the outfall itself.
And with the concentrate line, I think it's important to remember that really what we're talking about is water that we've taken out of the ground and basically separated the minerals and organics from it, and it's water we're putting back into the river. So it's not, it's essentially, we call it concentrate because it's water that's coming out of the ground with all the natural minerals and everything in it, and we're just putting it back in at a higher concentration than what came out of the ground because of that's what we've separated and sent out as drinking water. So it's really not, it's considered a wastewater line, but it's not really wastewater, it's just groundwater that we've removed some of the water from it. So it's the same minerals and everything going back into the river as groundwater, it's just in a slightly higher concentration. And for anybody that's ever gone up the New River, to the right of Phillips Bridge as you're going out of town, there's two markers out there, and basically it's just a, it's like a diffuser that's just under the water, and it's got what we call duck bills, and as we send water out, they just kind of open up and release the water into the river, and then they just close back up. So, but as part of our, as you can see, it's sampled daily, weekly, and then, I don't remember, it's 2 times a week?
2 times a week.
That water quality pulls upstream and downstream samples to make sure there's nothing odd from, coming from the water plant.
I'm also looking for the pH out there to concentrate, which I'm really concerned about.
What are you looking for in the sample? What parameters are you?
Mostly pH is what Joe said. I just rely on my, Jill's former staff is the one that handled all of that.
And so what if it's out of bounds, or what can you do to react?
We've never had anything out of parameters. I'm not sure what would put something out of parameters, because again, it's water that we're withdrawing from an aquifer, and we're really not feeding chemicals into that portion that's being taken out. So it really should just be natural water going back in.
But if I heard you right, you say it has higher concentration of minerals in it?
Well, it's
Than
the same
normal?
amount of minerals, just less water, because we pulled some of the water went into our drinking water system.
So that doesn't have any effect on the river having more?
Actually, the fish are bigger in that area.
That's why I was asking. So I'm looking for a good place to go fishing. Thank you.
You'll see, during trout season, you'll see them up there against it.
So most of we check the pH of the incoming raw water for the plant, and that usually comes in around a 7.4 to 7.5. And by the time it gets filtered out, that rejected water only went up by 0.3 or so. So it's, yeah, as Wally said, it doesn't really change a whole lot, just the concentration of the minerals.
Again, it goes back to, we have really good water in this area. Our water sources are both really good.
Can I ask a question about the water towers? Because when you had been talking about the cell phone towers, was it the last meeting? I thought you said that the contractor that takes care of them for us also escorts the telephone people onto the property when they go?
They oversee installation and any work that gets done, but when you have somebody periodically go out there to change out something minor, or because they all have electronics associated with them. Some of them have backup generators, so it's not uncommon for a cell phone carrier's contractor to go out there, and they're supposed to contact us, but that doesn't always happen. But our maintenance contractor isn't there with them physically every time they do work.
'Cause that's
They
what
just
I'm-
oversee that when major work is done, that it's done appropriately.
So the contractors can go out and they can break those locks, or they have keys to those locks, or how does that work?
Typically, we have a daisy chain of locks, so we'll have 3 or 4 locks all interconnected. So we have a lock, so if we open our lock, it just breaks the chain, we open the chain. So Sprint would have their own, AT&T, well, AT&T would have theirs, T-Mobile might have theirs. Verizon. So,
And then utility
and
services
Duke
have
has a key. So there's multiple locks just all chained together. There's no great way to do it. And we've just found that works the best, but periodically you have somebody show up who doesn't have the right key, so they cut their lock. Well, once they cut it, they can't unlock any to put back on. Or in the case of what John's talking about, is the hatches actually have a lock on them that you lock from underneath. And those are the ones that get cut periodically that we don't know about.
Asset management, they do, before anything goes up, they'll do a post-inspection.
Uh-huh.
That they'll have to pass to make sure that they're within the parameters of our agreement. And they also do annual inspections on the tanks. They don't have a permanent staff here local.
Right.
So when Verizon needs to tweak an antenna, I think that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So there is a period where those are unlocked? If they break a lock, if they cut a lock?
We would find the gate immediately. So if it's just a gate, because we go to every site daily, actually multiple times a day.
Okay.
So if it's just an entry, we would find it. But we don't climb water towers anymore.
Right.
So we would be less likely to find those. They would get found during inspection or if another carrier goes up or if our asset management people go up.
So if they cut a lock, somebody's going to find it that day?
Oh, we'll find it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Honestly, and John can vouch for this, I don't know if they've ever not called us when they've caught one.
When they have to, okay.
They'll call, hey, I'm sorry, can you guys come out and relock this for us? I mean, I don't think I've ever had to do this in all these years, go out there and find one that wasn't just wide open because they left it.
Okay,
They're pretty good about calling us. The number's right there next to it.
okay.
So.
Gates are all interlocked together, but that one on the ladder is just one. So it's a hard solution to solve with all these different contractors having that same key.
Right.
But the the NPDES inspection, they usually just come and ask for updates. Has our flow changed out there? Is there any staff backup ORC updates? And there's usually not much. Our range is still the same, our numbers are still the same, and they get a copy of all of our sampling data. And that's it. If there's any questions.
Probably should know this, but what is a booster station again?
So our system, our drinking water system, is split in two zones: a low zone, for low pressure, and a high pressure zone. The low pressure zone is mainly the older side of Gum Branch Road, and the booster station can take water from the low side and transfer it to the high side, because the high side uses a lot more water than the low side. So we'll kind of move the water, for one, to decrease the lifespan of the water, so it's newer water, and to provide the pressure and quantity for the high zone.
The booster station, the only one we have, is right there behind Cardinal Village Apartments. There's down Indian Drive, there's a little church. Our station's kind of in behind the church, behind the Gum Branch water tank. And it actually pumps directly to the Commons tank.
Was there any surprises in the inspection this time? They usually come up with something.
The only surprise is that the state has not provided a truck to the inspector. 'Cause some of our well houses are very difficult to get to. But no, we usually, not to brag about the staff, but they stay on top of it pretty well. I can brag about the staff, I guess.
You can brag about it. You guys are great.
Very good mechanics on staff.
That's awesome, but how much time does the state give you to actually do the repairs of anything they find?
Well, we had ours done the next day and they hadn't even issued their letter yet. We did it based off of their written, and I think I got a letter via email maybe a week and a half later, 2 weeks later. So, and I think they even mentioned that we had already addressed the issues because we emailed them pictures of everything that we addressed. So,
That's still awesome, but you don't know exactly much time they give you?
No,
Because
I
you're
don't
so good, you
remember.
don't need to know.
that's right.
That's
We
what it sounds
just
like.
made sure it was done.
Yeah.
We weren't worried about whether they give us 30 or 45 days. I'm sure they give a reasonable amount of time based on what the repair would be. You know, if some system had some major repair, I'm sure they get longer.
And I'm confident that if there was something severe, that the site would be shut down, they would be aware before they even showed up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. So now it's time for open discussion, so if
I do
anyone-
have one thing. I'd like to talk a little bit, and I don't have any slides prepared for this. I apologize, I should have. But for those that have been anywhere near the Northwoods area, we have a pretty major repair project going on along Sioux Drive and Seminole, right at that intersection. We had scheduled to do some work, and we went out there and looked at the sewer system and found that the sewer system was in very bad shape. And in cameraing it, there were portions we couldn't get through. As we were jetting to clean to camera, we actually found 3 manholes that had three manholes that had no bottom in them at all. Literally, when we pulled them out of the ground to replace them, they were brick manholes, but it looked like a brick pipe. So we replaced, I don't remember the exact length, but we ended up replacing 4 total, 4 or 5.
Keep adding,
Man.
I lose count.
I think we replaced 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we replaced 5 manholes with brand new precast manholes that meet our current specs. We've replaced all of the pipe in between. It's very shallow, very flat. So we went up a size. We had challenges. Anybody in the construction industry knows that it's very hard to get materials right now. So we did have challenges getting the materials that we wanted. So unfortunately, we had to go back with, it's still a good material and better, much better than what was there, but we couldn't get exactly what we wanted. So we relayed those manholes, the sewer in between those manholes, and then laid new clean out or new services up to the yards, all the way up to a new clean out. And then while we were there, we actually replaced the water service from the main. We didn't do anything with the main, but we replaced the main, the water service from the main to the meter and moved the meter into the right of way because some of those houses, the meter was midway up the yard or very close to the house. So we relocated those meters while we were there too. It took us a while in Sioux, every time they went in to tie to the existing system, it's terracotta ended up breaking on them, so we did have to extend a little bit. And then we are now on, of course you work downstream up, so we're now on Seminole Trail, replacing some of that. As soon as we get that done, we actually found similar problems in manholes in the Cheyenne and Sioux intersection. So we ended up extending our project from Seminole Trail on Sioux Drive, from Seminole Trail down to Cheyenne, I believe it is. So it's another couple hundred feet.
Subcontractors or city staff?
So what we did is, because it's an emergency repair, we literally could have called somebody up and said, hey, come make this repair. As a staff, we got together and discussed it and decided that while it was an emergency repair, it didn't have to be done overnight, so we had a little bit of time. So we invited 5 contractors that we've worked with on multiple projects, and they came, we walked the entire project with all 5 of them, all but one, and that was because he didn't have, that company had so much work they couldn't get to it. Yeah. All but one submitted a bid to us. So it wasn't your traditional advertise with a plan, with specs and everything, and they submit a bid and then we do a formal opening. It was, we met, we walked the site, we gave them a brief, bullet summary of what the project entailed. So they're all on the same page, which is the important thing. And because they've all worked with the city before, they all carry the appropriate insurance and everything. So we didn't have any insurance challenges. And they submitted us, we literally did that on a Friday. The next Friday we had bids in hand. And the following Monday, the low bidder was actually ordering the pipe. And I think we were out there within a week of that. So we significantly shortened the timetable for additional project, but for an emergency, it took a little bit longer.
Good.
It worked very well. We felt it was fair, because it was, while we could have just picked somebody and said, come do it, we did call multiple people, and asked them to, or multiple companies and asked them to submit. Even with the work that we're adding in, we had identified a portion of that road in the capital improvement plan. So we knew that we were going to have to do a little something along Seminole Trail. But when we got there and realized that the manholes had no bottoms in them, we were forced to do something immediately. And unfortunately, the manhole in Sioux, as we were there, we watched 3 cars bottom out, and literally one car hit it so hard that their back tires came off the ground that high. And I was not the only one that saw it. So, it's just something that had to be addressed. And unfortunately, Hurricane Florence has highlighted a few places that are like that. And we've noticed that, we went from overly saturated in Hurricane Florence to a fairly dry summer following that, and we started noticing some problems. What we're doing now is trying to document some of those. We're doing, windshield surveys where we can. We're using our camera truck to go through and camera some of those. And the idea is we're trying to build an inventory of things that we know we're going to have to address in the future. Part of the reason we're doing that is because, we didn't realize this. We didn't find out until after Florence. But if you have good documentation, if you have a storm and that happens and you can prove that that is tied to the storm, and it's declared a state of emergency, and there's FEMA funding available, so there's a lot of ifs there, but there is money that you can be eligible for to make some of those repairs. So we want to make sure in the future that we can take advantage of that money if it's available. And we did do that with a stormwater pipe in Riverwalk Park, which is why we're replacing that pipe now. That's exactly what we never had any problems. Then all of a sudden Hurricane Florence comes through, and literally within a matter of a month, sinkholes start developing in the park. So we were able to, FEMA came in, we submitted it, FEMA came in, reviewed the project, reviewed the park. We had sufficient documentation to show, there was pictures from all kinds of festivals and stuff. So we were actually able to get that project funded, and they funded 100% of the project. So we're hoping that if we have good documentation in the future, we can take advantage of that if we find that happening with our sewer system, because it would be eligible also. So the one thing I didn't say is our timeline for Sioux and Seminole. If I had to guess, we'll probably be there with the work we're adding in another month. We have coordinated with the school. The good thing is, as you know, Northwoods is pretty interconnected. So, really to bypass this, they've only got to go over, a block or so, and they can go down Decatur. But we do recognize that it's an inconvenience, and it's an inconvenience for, those houses that we're working in front of. The good news is once we're finished with the sewer project, we will come through and do a asphalt patch for the area that we dug up. And then within the next, hopefully the end of the summer, so within the next 6 months or so, once we've got the patch in place, we'll actually come through and do a street paving project, which will cover Sioux completely. So we'll come back and we'll mill a portion of that patch off and basically do an overlay of the entire street. So when we're finished, hopefully we won't have to go back into Sioux for a while.
One more question.
Yes, sir.
In front of my office, probably a week or so ago, might have been this week, I don't even know, which is Center Street. Looked like maybe there was a subcontractor there. I don't know if they were cameraing the line or what they were doing, but they were in some of those manholes several days last week, maybe?
Are we doing that as lining?
That is part of our slip lining project.
Okay,
and
all
yes,
right.
it's
Yep.
subcontractor.
All right.
Yeah, so as part of for our I&I project, our inflow and infiltration project, we do have one of those projects going on right now. And we camera it the first time and identify it for repair, but before the lining can be installed, the lining company that gets the bid comes through, cleans it, cameras it for themselves, and as they do that, they mark all the services so they know where to reinstate the services, those kind of things.
Gotcha.
So that's what they were doing there.
Okay.
And Center Street is one of those that we also have identified. The state, you know, a portion of that street is city and a portion of that street is DOT. And DOT has paved, if not all, most of their portion of the street. And Center Street is on our list of streets to be paved, hopefully this summer. The design's done. We're working on some funding alternatives. Any other questions about Sioux and Seminole or others?
I have one about the water treatment plant. How's the progress coming along on the chlorine tanks and the concrete and the work was being done on that?
I'll let you answer that. I know that we've just had a pre-construction meeting.
The sulfuric acid tanks, yes, they just stopped by today. And the chemical feed line part of that, I think they've got down. But there's tricks involved with the sulfuric acid. Because it is a dangerous chemical, but we have another pre-con on Monday with them. And the trick is how to reroute the temporary lines and get those tanks out to actually work on it.
When they start, is there any kind of timeline as to how long the thing is going to take, assuming things behave?
The project has been designed and bid and awarded. So I don't know what the timeline is, but there is a timeline in the contract. Mm-hmm. But I don't remember off the top of my head what that is.
It's pretty long because of the two-phase chemical lines in the tank, so it's pretty long
A pretty long phase.
time on it.
By pretty long, do you mean 2 months, 6 months, a year and a half?
I think it's a year and a half. I think.
I thought I was being facetious saying a year and a half. Okay, maybe I wasn't.
It's really long. The one portion won't take as long to redoing the chemical feed lines, separating them all. But that sulfuric tank and the pumping and the lines, is a tad bit tricky.
Okay.
And they have to order new tanks. So we're not going back with the tanks that are there. So we'll be installing new tanks. So there's lead times on some of that. So all of that's built into it also.
Okay, but it's going to take a while.
It is.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else on, if not, we have something,
Yes,
Mr.
please.
Thomas?
Got some bad news and some really bad news.
Uh,
Come on. I'd like to
I
ask
think you
the-
forgot some bad news.
I'd like to ask the ladies to join me at the front here. I guess the bad news is, we passed the budget last Tuesday, and there's a $2 additional sanitation fee coming along, as well as a 2.25% annual increase that we're working with the water. What you do? You first. Me first? You first, you second, and Jill. And so, next month's water bill, I guess July statement will be different from your June statement. It's the annual increase, but the really bad news is we're losing 3 of our board members tonight. This is our final meeting, and this is definitely a first for me. I've been here 14 years only to lose 3 people at the same time. The first, well, the longest-serving member of the board is Jill Ayuso, who came on board in 2008, right after I got here, and it's been definitely an asset, and enjoyed her provocative questions and keeping us to the toeing the line. But we've got an appreciation award for each of you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and next is Dr. Diana Rashad, came in with us in 2012 and up the up the environmental knowledge of the group quite a bit. I mean, it's a lot of losses going on here today. Appreciate your service. And by the way, everybody's moving away. Nobody left voluntarily. We're just, they lost their qualifications. I'm sure they would still continue to serve if they could. But Diane, we appreciate what you've done. And
Thank you.
we're going to miss all of you, of course. And then Jill Puff, it says you began your service in 2019, which is probably a tad inaccurate. If you would go back to your,
My start date with the city was 1985.
all right, well, so a lot of longer service than that, but I mean, 2 years on the board, and we appreciate that. I was going to poll the remaining of us. Now, who made an A in chemistry in this crowd, or who even took chemistry in this crowd? I mean, no, the remaining ones, that's what I'm getting at. We're losing a lot of in-depth knowledge that we're going to have to work hard to make up. So anyway, like I said, it's a recognition to everybody for their outstanding citizenship and substantial and inspired service to our city and the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee. I just don't know how we're going to get along without you, honestly. We've got a big void to fill, and I invite anybody to say any.
Thank you to all of you. It's been a pleasure to work with all the staff I've worked with over the years. Everybody's been wonderful, and the council members and all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
If we didn't enjoy it, we
Get-
wouldn't
get a
have
picture.
said
Yeah, we're gonna miss you guys.
Get one picture, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
They have to all
Go this way. Go this way.
And he keeps wandering away from us.
I know. Thinks he'll have to leave too if he's in the picture.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Y'all were moving out of as a city?
Jill's moving up to the Triangle, Diana's moving to Colorado, and I'm moving down to Wilmington.
Oh, goodness.
Yep. Yeah, and we all kind of were like, oh, here, Wally, here's a letter for you, here's a letter for you.
I try not to turn those letters in too. Actually, I don't think I did. I just kind of hoped it wouldn't go through.
Wow.
But I do want to say thank you for everything that you've done, not just for the staff and on behalf of the staff, but for the citizens too. Sometimes I don't like all the questions I get, but I completely understand. I do appreciate that the value that each of you add and the guidance that you give us. Thank you. And don't leave after because we have cake for you too.
And this also lets people know that there's vacancies on the committee.
Multiple vacancies.
Yes.
Yes.
So if anybody out there in TV land has an interest in water and sewer and they live within the city limits, they should come by City Hall.
It's right on the website.
Or they can fill it out online. They can fill out an application online.
Yep. Don't make it an all-boys club.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That is it.
All right. Well, if we have, our next meeting is Thursday, July 8th, minus half of us, and if we can have a motion to adjourn.
I have one question. Elections. When is that supposed to be done?
It would be done the first meeting after July. I was going to share with you, it's up there because it's regularly scheduled. We will likely cancel the July meeting. City council's off in July also, and it's shortly after the holiday, so we'll probably cancel the July meeting because that will give us some time to get some applications in, get them reviewed. Then, of course, it's got to go to city council to be appointed. Any candidates have to go to city council to be appointed. So we definitely wouldn't have anybody by July, but hopefully in August. And, as always, if we end up canceling August, we will call the board and let you know and advertise it as normal. So, but we'll definitely cancel July. We'll just go ahead and tell you now, but you'll still get the notice.
So the next president and vice president, or at the next one would,
It would be it would have to be after the July meeting. It would be after what would normally be the July meeting. So we'll figure it out.
our VP will chair.
That's right, we have
Yes.
Mr. Terry. But thank you.
Yeah, you can go ahead, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Can we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.